Well, it's Christmas, and according to Burrow Eyes, it's the best time of the year. When I bring up the word Christmas, what are the first three things that come to your mind? That's right, shopping, decorating, and plenty of snow. Unfortunately for me, it doesn't snow in where I live, but that's not going to stop me from counting down my favorite ice levels in video games. As for rules, only levels I've beaten, one level per series, and as long as the level has lots of snow and or ice, then it qualifies for the list. Now then, let's see how cool these ice levels really are. I swear that pun was unintentional. Ever since the Hedgehog jumped into 3D, the Sonic the Hedgehog games have had 3D games to varying degrees of success, from something pretty spectacular to something kinda meh to Sonic 06. But in general, most of these 3D games have received mixed reviews from many fans of the series, one of these being Sonic Unleashed. I managed to get myself a copy of this game, for cheap no less, earlier this year, and yeah, it has flaws like Sonic feeling a bit slippery in the 3D segments or the warehouse stages, which are especially painful when you're playing them on the Wii, and I don't mean figuratively. But overall, I couldn't bring myself to hate this game, but that's another story. One thing that's pretty creative for Sega and Sonic teams to do in this game is to base the levels on certain countries in the world we live in, not only in terms of design, but in terms of the name as well. Chunan's name is derived from China, fitting considering all the Chinese structures featured in the level. Spagonia got its name from Spain, and Holoska has the last three letters of Alaska in its name. Fitting considering the fact that Alaska itself has quite a lot of snow, despite the fact that it is believed that Holoska is instead based on... So yeah, since I'm talking about ice levels here, it's pretty obvious that I'm talking about Holoska in this segment. But before we get into why it's on this list, I must first state that I'm only talking about the daytime stage here, since the warehouse stages have every problem I listed early on this entry, except with lousy platforming. Also, for the record, I'm also talking about the Wii version of the daytime Holoska stage. For what I've seen, the PS3 version has Sonic running on freaking water, which isn't anything special, but why Sega didn't bring this to the Wii version, I will never know. But that's enough rambling from me, onto the actual entry. The first part of the level have you hijack what looks like a snowmobile. Going back to the PS3 version, it had you use a snowmobile on what looks like a whale. Again, why Sega didn't include this in the Wii version is beyond me. Instead of the Wii version, you have to deal with falling ice. The snowmobile's control are a bit finicky, but considering the level design here, I still say that dying at this section is pretty much unlikely. Afterwards, the snowmobile section goes into 2D, and to be honest, I prefer this over the 3D version, as all you really need to do here is to jump, so you don't have to deal with the finicky controls here. And the 2D segment transitions when Sonic starts running again. Well, technically it's in 3D, but it still plays like a 2D section. The 2D segment have you action-chaining A-Man's robots, running over speed panels, and smashing ice. Yeah, as expected in something resembling 2D Sonic, it's pretty fun, even with the features incorporated in Unleashed. And then there's the 3D section. Despite Sonic's slippery controls, this section is not too bad. Like in the 2D segment, you have to action chain A-Man's robots, run over speed panels, and smash ice. But you also have to deal with obstacles like a rocking ice platform and walls that are about to close in on you. The boost power you get from your rings will really come in handy here. Combine that with a really catchy song and branching paths that the Sonic games are famous for, and you'll get a level that isn't as good as the next 8 entries on the list, but nevertheless, I still feel like giving it a spot here. Ah yes, LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventures, one of my most cherished games from my childhood. Okay, must I seriously say something like that every time I bring up this game? Anyway, since this is a licensed game, let alone a licensed game based on 3 movies, you think this game would try to be faithful to the movies it's based on. Well, in the tradition of all Traveler's Tales LEGO games before and after this one, this game is pretty faithful to the movies it's based on, while also deviating from the source material, mostly for gameplay purposes. To see an example of this, we come to the second level, Into the Mountains. This level is based on the scene where Indy goes on his adventure to find the Ark of the Covenant before the Nazis can, and him meeting Marie and Ravenwood so he can use her medallion to find the Ark's location. After a cutscene that tried to replicate the famous Love You scene from the original movie, this level begins with a Raven. Here, we can play as Marianne, the first female character we get in the game. And like all female characters, she's very nimble and can jump really high, which you need if you want to get a key off the second floor of the Raven. With it, you can let Gestapo agent Toad in and fight him in a pretty bad boss fight. I've already talked about that before. After kicking Toad out of the Raven and witnessing the destruction of the place, you get to the snowy part of the level. Here you have to repair lists and light up dynamite with torches. All the while, you have to fight off Nazi Sherpas and deal with collapsing platforms. But since you cannot get a game over in this game, they're not that big of a deal. The only penalty here is that you lose a couple of studs. And near the end of the level, you go into some Nepalese temple where the co-op mechanic in this game is put to the test before walking out into the snow again. In this final stretch, you get presented with the destructive power of the bazooka for the first time in the game. You'll have to use it in order to repair a bridge leading to a truck full of respawning black Nazis that, for what I know, never appear in the actual movie. Don't worry, destroying the truck will prevent it from respawning, and once you get to the other side of the broken bridge, you watch as Indy and Marion hijack a Nazi jeep and go to Cairo. So yeah, Into the Mountains is a pretty fun level. The reason it's only number 8 is because the snow section is entirely pointless. In the original movie, Indy and Marion were standing under the snow arguing for like 18 seconds, so this level serves no purpose other than to make the Raven shootout scene as long as possible. Oh well, at least these types of scenarios can work if they're actually good. And in the case of Into the Mountains, it worked because it's a good level. Also, you can find a cameo by Luke Skywalker in this stage. You need his cameo if you want to unlock Han Solo. Okay, so have any of you guys played Earthbound? If yes, then tell me if this sounds familiar. You make it to free, you find 2 zombies guarding a hole, and when you come back to the town, you find a weird lady entering the hotel. So you go in, the hotel music becomes trippy, and the hotel manager is nowhere to be found as you find out where the weird lady is. When you find her, you get ambushed by many monsters and you get thrown into a room with a locked door. Okay, so you are trapped. What do? Give up? Nope. Instead, once you find out the door is locked, Paula, aka the best character in the game, began praying for a boy named Jeff to rescue them, which brings us to the number 7 candidate on this list, Winters. But before I can talk about it, I must first address that I'm only talking about the first visit where you only play as Jeff. The second visit was pretty short as all you needed to do is wait for Dr. Ananas to remodel the Skyrunner. And by wait for him to remodel the Skyrunner, I mean pretty much fight the Sanctuary Guardian guarding the Rainy Circle. And the third visit is essentially the first one, except at the end you go into Gygas' headquarters under Stonehenge, which doesn't really have much snow, if at all. So the first visit it is. At the beginning of the level, you play as Jeff, accompanied by his best friend Tony. The first thing you need to do is to get out of boarding school, but first, you need to get some stuff out of the locker room. How do you get stuff out of the locker room? Well, you go see a guy named Maxwell, who looks suspiciously like an unassuming local guy. At first, he'll give you a key, but after you realize it doesn't work, he'll give you a bad key machine. While you're roaming around the boarding school, you can hear a pretty relaxing theme which is apparently a SNES remix of a song from the first Earthbound game. Once you get everything you can find in the lockers, Tony will help you leave school. Here, the music changes and you get yourself a bigger place to explore, but since this is an RPG, there are enemies in this level. And this level features the returns of runaway dogs and spiteful crows, but it also introduces the admittedly annoying gruff ghost. Obvious reference is obvious. There is also a shop with, for some reason, a monkey. You can get him to join you if you give him bubblegum. Believe me, you need to let him join you. Otherwise, you can't cross the other side of Lake Tess by summoning Tessie the Lake Monster. Again, obvious reference is obvious. Once you get to the other side of Lake Tess, you must go into some sort of maze. Not only do you fight rowdy mice again, but you also have to fight mad ducks and worthless protoplasms. When you walk out, you meet Brick Road, the dungeon's creator, who will offer you a good night rest. You then go into another cave. This time is where the aforementioned Rainy Circle is located. From what I've heard, you cannot fight a Sanctuary Guardian unless you have Ness and Paula with you. As for the cave itself, it doesn't really have any new enemies aside from, relatives of the rambling evil mushrooms. Well, at least these guys don't mushroomize you. Seriously, I hate it when that happens. The Bubble Monkey's ability to blow balloon bubble gum bubbles is used again in this cave, though I'll admit I had to look up a walkthrough on that. When you make it out of the cave, the Bubble Monkey will ditch you for a female monkey and you can find yourself in Stonehenge. Yes, that Stonehenge. The final new enemy in this level are Cave Boys, which I don't recommend fighting until later in the game because they're pretty dang tough. And at last, you reunite Jeff with his father, Dr. Anodas, who will give you the Skyrunner to find Ness and Paula. Overall, I don't know what it is about this level I love so much. It probably have to do with the fact that after you get thrown into a room with no way out, the game decides to give you a possible solution in the form of a level instead of you finding one with walkthroughs. Crypticness is a problem with Earthbound, but it doesn't appear often. I know that Deus Ex Machina is a cliche and this level can be seen as one, but that doesn't change the fact that this level has charm, is memorable, and is one of many reasons why Earthbound is a much better game than I initially thought. Once you go into the Skyrunner, and look at certain places you will be visiting later on in the game, you crash it into the room Ness and Paula are trapped in. Not only do you get to play as them again, but you also have Jeff joining your party, and his backing machine will get you out of the room. One problem that ice levels usually have are its physics. Basically, to quote the Quartet Guy, ice in video games usually have next to no friction, even more than real life, and the ice levels in the Mega Man games are no exception. There are, however, some levels that don't have ice physics. Case in point, Cold Man Stage. Essentially a GBA version of Frostman Stage from Mega Man 8, just without the... This level takes away the ice physics typically found in this series. Then again, it was replaced with snow, and snow isn't quite as slippery as ice. While most of the level takes place with a base background with nothing special aside from metal decorations and the main boss is pretty annoying, this is still a pretty fun level to play through. It has the enemies found in Frostman stage like Pen-Pen Eevees and Rabbitons, and it even brings back the ice dispensers. It does introduce some new obstacles like breakable ice and an underwater segment. Underwater levels in Mega Man never bothered me as much as everyone else, so it didn't hinder my enjoyment of playing this level. The fight with Cold Man is also fun, while also a bit hectic at the end, and his weapon, the Ice Ball, is pretty good too, but you already knew that if you saw my last countdown. And finally, the music that plays in this level is so good, I used it in my holiday intro. I don't know what else to say. Cold Man stage takes away a cliche typically maligned in ice levels while still making it fun. Then again, levels with ice physics can work. I may have given the classic Mega Man series a representation on this list, but that's not going to stop me from giving the X series a chance to shine. And yes, Blizzard Buffalo stage from Mega Man X3 seems like a random choice, but I don't really have much options. Chill Penguin stage is good, but nothing too special except for the fact you get the leg upgrades here. Frost Walrus stage was pretty meh. I haven't played X8, so Avalanche Jetty stage is out of the question. And the less I have to talk about Blizzard Wolfang stage from Mega Man X6, the better. But onto the actual entry. This level takes place in a destroyed town covered in snow, fitting considering the nature of the X series. Despite this fact, the background is still eye-candy to look at, especially with the crescent moon. As for the level itself, you shoot down Maverick Mechanoids just like the rest of the X series. Unlike Cold Man stage, however, this level is full of ice physics. However, it isn't as annoying compared to levels like, say, Chill Man stage from Mega Man 10. Why? Well, for one, X can dash, which is essentially the X series equivalent of sliding, and he has the charge shot. So dealing with enemies and ice physics at the same time is easy for someone like him. At least when the level is well designed. But I think one big important difference, and this may be personal, is the fact that this level doesn't have fragile ice blocks. The fight against Blizzard Buffalo may be easy, but it's still fun, and his weapon, despite its misleading title, is one of the strongest in the game. Plus, the music is simply gorgeous, but at the same time, it's pretty somber. Almost like it's trying to capture the mood of the X games like the background. This level is pretty short, and aside from the tolerable ice physics, there isn't much obstacles in this level aside from occasional darkness and the cyclone you can shut down. Even still, despite its ice physics, this is one of the best ice levels I've experienced in the Mega Man X game, even though that's not saying much. Oh, and you can get X's leg upgrades in this level. Better late than never to mention that.